watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Marsh
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm Jimmy Murphy. He is Pierre McGuire. And we will be joined probably within the next 15 minutes by our good friend Aaron Portzline of The Athletic, who is in Columbus. Of course, tonight they will honor Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau prior to their game against the Florida Panthers. They're going to have a memorial for them, and we will talk to our good friend Aaron Portzline about that and about the Blue Jackets shortly. But before we do that, Pierre, let's look back on the night that was. We came on kind of midstream of the slate of games yesterday because there were some matinees when still going on, some of them when we got on at 4. But some of the night games are interesting. I want to start in Montreal, and of course, that's where a lot of our listeners and viewers are. And, you know, Pierre, I thought when watching that game, and they did have some good moments, but overall, it felt a bit to me like the Canadians came back down to earth a bit. They just, maybe it was an emotional letdown, what have you. I have no idea, but that game was there. The score may not say it, but the game was there for them to win if they had been playing to the level they had been playing in the games going into last night.
Well, they fought back. Obviously, you fall behind 2-0, and then you have to push against an urgent Pittsburgh Penguin team, by the way, who was coming off a loss in Toronto. And, you know, it wasn't a great start to their year. Now they're a 500 team with Buffalo going into Pittsburgh tomorrow night. But no, they played against a team that was ready to push, a lot of veteran presence. When they went ahead, Montreal, that is, when they went ahead on Heineman's goal, I was like, okay, this could be legit. And then all of a sudden, just running around, not a lot of poise. Pittsburgh clearly had more poise. And you saw Evgeny Malkin. There's a reason why he's been as good as he's been throughout most of his 19 years in the league. You know, he just took over the game. And so that Montreal doesn't have a player like that. They don't have a player like Crosby. You know, people can dream all they want. They don't have those players.
Right.
Now, down the road, will they have a chance to have really good players? They will.
Yep.
And do I think their defense is going to be better than the defense we saw from the Pittsburgh Penguins last night? 100%. They'll be better. But Rome wasn't built in a day, and it takes time for players to get to where they need to be. I would tell you straight up, there are a lot of guys that were underwhelming last night. One guy who wasn't was Caden Gooley. Caden Gooley was really good, Jimmy. We've talked about this for a long time. There are not a lot of guys. He's a left shot. He can play on the right side. He can play on the left side. He can kill penalties. He can be on your power play. You saw how he can rip a puck last night. He can absolutely hammer a puck on a one-timer last night, set up by Matheson. So, I mean, there's a lot to like. This is all part of an 82-game schedule for this team. And anybody that says they're a playoff team this year, they're not giving the team the proper pump-up. They're not. No. This is a team that's going to battle, you hope, right till the end and maybe push for that last spot. Maybe.
Yep. I'm with you on that.
You look at it. You know. You've covered the division unbelievably well.
Thank you.
Who are they finishing ahead of?
I know. I mean, one of Ottawa or Detroit or Buffalo is going to have, you know, out of those 4, only one probably makes it, and they're going to have to really drop too. And they've kind of been ahead of Montreal a bit in the trajectory towards getting to the playoffs. So they're in tough for it. But like they said in the beginning, they just want to be in the mix, Pierre, and I think they can achieve that.
Well, they'll be in the mix. Yeah. Here's the thing, Jimmy. You and I both see Fowler play a lot. We study him. He's not going to be there till the springtime, okay? And I don't know if they'll put him right in the NHL. They might put him in Laval. But what I can tell you is if they don't get elite goaltending, and they didn't last night, you know, Sam Montembeault, it's not his fault. It's not going to be great every night. He's just not going to be great every night.
Right.
Okay? But he wasn't good last night.
No.
And so you see what happens.
Yeah.
So great goaltending can camouflage a lot of your blemishes.
Yep.
A lot of them. And they didn't get great goaltending last night.
And you know, I think, Pierre, you said it. I mean, after the opening of the season opener against Toronto, when they allowed all those shots, but Montembeault was lights out, you know, okay, that's great. You got the win, but there was a lot of things not going right in that game. And they've kind of matriculated a bit throughout the first few games here. There's been some, you know, kind of patterns that I've seen with them. Sometimes I look at the neutral zone play. There has been a little, lazy is not a proper word. That's a little harsh, but just lackadaisical. I think. I've
Helter
seen him coming
helter
through the neutral
skelter.
zone.
Helter skelter. I would agree with
That's
you.
a great. That's a great word. Perfect.
Well,
Helter-
I like what you said because you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So, and I know I've heard from enough people north of the border today, friends of mine that I grew up with or whatever, and telling me that they're really worried about Kirby Doc.
Mhm.
Okay. I understand it. One of our best guests, and I hope he's a regular, is Brian Wild. Brian was here yesterday.
He was amazing.
So, what did he say? He talked about Pierre. Like, when do you think Kirby Doc's going to be judgeable? It takes time. He's coming
Yeah.
off a major injury.
Exactly.
And I said there are 3 different times over the course of an NHL season. There's from the start of the year to the U.S. Thanksgiving. Then there's U.S. Thanksgiving to the trade deadline. And then there's the last sprint from the trade deadline to the playoffs.
Yep.
That's their difference. And you can see it when you're down at ice level, whether you're playing, coaching, or refereeing or broadcasting, if you're down there, you know it. It's been going on for every year I've been in the league, 35 of them. And so you know it. And those are the 3 demarcation points.
Mhm.
And so he's got a lot of work to do to get back to where he needs to be. If you're going to be able to catch up for the next level, which comes right after U.S. Thanksgiving.
Yep, I'm with you. It's just patience with him. Don't worry about it. I see people saying, "Get him out of there, drop him down the lineup." Blah blah blah. Just pump the brake. Pump the
Jimmy,
brake.
I don't know who, like, I know you're my social media guy, but I'm just
Yeah.
telling you, I got friends calling me up.
Well, I sent you something. I'm not going to call the person out, but I sent you something from somebody
No,
in
I
the
know,
media.
I saw.
Yeah, and it was like, are they watching the same game? And you know, the player that they suggested to replace Doc, I don't think has been better than Doc. It just shows the overreaction that happens.
Well,
And
first
you're
of
lucky
all-
you're not on social media, Pierre, because it drives me crazy sometimes.
No, but what I really admire about you is you're not making it personal. People are entitled to their opinions, and I respect everybody's opinion. That being said, Kirby's coming back from a really significant injury.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was thinking about it too after you sent me that, I was thinking about, let's just say they moved him to the wing. Throw it out there. Let's just say
Okay.
we're going to move him to the wing, but he's not going to play in a top 6 role. He's going to move down. He's going to play probably on the 3rd line.
Okay.
What does that do to somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
See, the one thing that I learned from Scotty is you got to be careful when you're moving guys out of the middle because it might not just affect one guy. It might
Oh, it's a
affect
ripple effect.
5 or 6 or 7
Yeah.
guys.
Yep.
So you got to be real when you do that. The guy in the middle, you can change the wingers, but the guy in the middle, you got to be really careful when you do that because you can really upset the apple cart for a lot of different people.
Well, one of the guy I agreed with you, Perrin. Are you okay with me saying who you suggested maybe could go in the middle?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, Alex Newhook, and I completely agree. I completely agree. I think if Marty's in a pinch and he needs to shake it up a bit, I think he's the guy that should slot in there in the 2nd line center. I'm totally in agreement with you.
I watched Alex play so much, whether he was out in Victoria in the BCHL, whether he was at Boston College, playing World Junior for Canada, obviously, in Colorado in particular when he first came out. Speed is an element to his game that's hard to teach. It's a really hard element, and so there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to like with his game. And I think when Montreal got him, I was really high on him, and I'm still high on him. I think there's a lot of good stuff there.
I think one of the things too, and you probably agree with me, Pierre, that attracted them to him is that versatility. That they feel, in situations like this, if somebody's hurt or if a line needs a jump start, he can move around and he's not going to take long to adapt. It's not going to set his game back. He's going to just keep doing what Alex Newhook does.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's play a good two-way game and utilize that speed.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you just said that. That's good. One other thing, and I'm not going to be an apologist for the Montreal Canadiens, but I think if you're a regular listener, I totally endorse myself from my management side, not the broadcast side, the management side, what the management's doing there. They're doing the right things. Things are going the right way. They are. They're doing the right things.
They are.
What's not fair, and it's never fair in the NHL, the Patrick Laine injury, that affects this lineup. And it affects a lot of their off-season planning. And all of a sudden it's become convenient to forget about him.
Yep.
You like I told you, people call me from north of the border and they're saying, "What about this?" And I never hear his name, and I'm like, "Whoa!"
Mm-hmm.
He was an important part of their plan. And think about the second power play, which would have been viable.
Mm-hmm.
If you have Lane Hudson at the top running that, and you have Laine as a one-timer, on the right side of the ice, it's a totally different, right? It's a totally different game.
Yep.
But you don't have him, and so now guys have to adjust. And again, I know everybody's in a rush for this thing to get done, but they're on the right track. I'd rather be in their shoes than a lot of other teams right now.
Oh yeah, Pierre. Well, I look at it. I mean, it's 2 consecutive seasons where a player to me, Kirby Dach and now Patrick Laine, that sort of symbolized them taking the next step. Yeah. We've got this type of player that enables us now to go to that next level is now missing again. And that's 2 seasons in a row they've had to deal with that. So let them deal with it. Let them adjust to it and see where they are in a few weeks or a month or 2. But you have to factor that in because I think that, as I'm saying, acquiring Laine was part of moving ahead to being in the mix. When they're looking at him in the lineup, they're saying we can be in the mix now with this guy here.
And look at what they had to do. I mean, they traded away one of the players that they were really fond of, in Harris. They really like Harris.
Yep. By the way, making his Blue Jackets debut tonight.
But that's why I'm bringing it up. I mean, they weren't in a rush to want to move him.
No.
And I remember telling Mel, like I said, I think it's going to come down to, do they trade Harris or do they trade Struble?
Mm-hmm.
And, I know why they traded Harris. You can, Struble's big. He's got that nasty element to him. They got enough puck transporters. They will, with Gooley, with Matheson, now with Lane Hudson. And don't discount, there's a kid playing in Laval. I can't wait to watch him play, William Trudeau. I know everybody's talking about Logan Mailloux, and they should. Look at Mailloux's a good player. William Trudeau's a good player.
He is.
I'm excited to see what he can do.
Yep.
And one guy that's got, and I'm not picking on him, but this is for the Canadiens fans. One guy and don't pick on the kid because he's just starting out with his career. But I would tell you right now, if Justin Barron doesn't play better than that, they put him on waivers. Or if he's got to go on waivers, put him on. See if anybody's going to take him.
I wonder if they.
Struble's not going to do that.
No,
Struble won't make those mistakes.
No, he won't. And I wonder, with the continuation of leaving Barron where he is, I wonder if they're looking at he does have to go through waivers. So maybe if we keep putting him out there, maybe somebody bites on a trade here. At least they get something back.
They might. I think it's obviously hard. It's hard to play in Montreal, but it's really hard to play defense as a young defenseman in Montreal. And that's the revelation that when you watch Lane Hudson, that's why he's so special. He's unique.
It was seamless.
There's not a lot of young guys that can do this in Montreal. It's just people. I get it because people are right inside the bubble. They don't understand. The bubble is harsh, man. It's harsh in Montreal.
Well, we'll come back to that bubble in about 10 or 15 minutes because we do have our guest, and I know he's on a tight schedule. So let's bring him in right now. Aaron Portzline joining us here from The Athletic in Columbus. Ort, you there, my friend?
I am here. Why can you not see me?
That's okay. We do miss your handsome face, but your voice will do.
I had a great shot for you guys too, except about 10 minutes ago it literally started hailing.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And now it's raining. Here we go. Wait. Oh, there we go. Nope.
Okay.
Doesn't like the camera. Does not like the camera.
That's okay.
Anyways. So yeah, I'm under an awning here. It's a terrible shot, so you're not missing anything anyways. But yeah, it should be an interesting day and night here in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. So take us inside. Just the atmosphere leading into this. I see all the wonderful things you're doing to honor the Gaudreau brothers. But what is the atmosphere been like, the tone of the players right now? Because it is great what they're doing, but they're also preparing for a game. How are they balancing that right now, Aaron?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I think tonight is sort of its own beast. I think the first 2 games of the season have been a continuation, really, of what we've seen throughout training camp, where honestly, guys, I think they've handled it absolutely perfectly, beautifully. It has been reflective and certainly remembering Johnny Gaudreau, paying tribute to him, but also I think carrying out the words that his wife so eloquently eulogized, that Johnny liked to have fun at the rink. It was what he loved doing best. He would want them to have fun at the rink. He would want them to play hard. He would want them to be the best that they can be. And I think we've seen that. And full, credit to all the players absolutely, for sure. They're the ones who knew him best and have gone through it. I think what's really helped here is to have a GM at the top, Don Waddell, who's been through this before, the Dan Snyder incident in Atlanta, those many years ago. And to have a head coach, Dean Evason, who's had his own sort of personal traumas that have helped him. Nothing prepares you for this, but just the way that he has been open with them. They have spoken openly about Johnny. It's not taboo to bring up his name. It's very honest and open, and again, I think they've handled it about as well as you could possibly handle such an awful situation. So that's full marks to them.
Hey, Aaron, have you had an opportunity to visit with Matthew Tkachuk, who's there with the Florida Panthers and was Johnny's line mate? And I thought 3 years ago they were the best line in the National Hockey League, Elias Lindholm, Tkachuk, and Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah, had not had a chance. They did not skate today. They played yesterday, of course, the day game, and then traveled here. There's Paul Maurice availability here shortly, but Matthew Tkachuk, if I'm correct, I believe he just literally moments ago sent out a message on Twitter and other social medias too, I'm sure, regarding Matthew and Johnny Gaudreau. So, but I have not spoken to him directly, no.
Aaron, I think one of the things we spoke to you about when this tragedy occurred was just obviously them having a new coach, Dean Evason coming in. It's hard enough trying to adapt and acclimate yourself into a new team and a new dressing room, and then to have this happen. But I think, we were all in agreement, if I recall, that it could be something that unites him more with them, that forces that bond to develop a little faster than maybe it would. Are you seeing that right now? And what has been kind of the interaction, publicly at least, from what you can see, between Evason and the team here in his early days with Blue Jackets?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting thing, actually, because one of the first things Dean Evason did as coach is fly to New Jersey to visit with Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, as every smart coach realizes, if you don't have the star player on board, what are you doing? It's going to be a hard go. And they spent a couple hours together, lunch, one day after Gaudreau skated and practiced or worked out in the morning. And I think he has said as much, forever grateful for that meeting. But Johnny Gaudreau is one of the reasons that Dean Evason is here. And he's not by himself. There are other players in the room, but the tone of the veteran players' message to management here was, get us a coach who is going to push us. Get us a coach that we're not going to like every day of the season, but is going to set a bar high and demand that we get there. Give us stability. This is their fourth coach in 2+ years. Make this real here. Make this a legitimate NHL situation, please. And Evason, I mean, look at the job he did in Minnesota. That's how the Blue Jackets are playing right now. They're delivering on their end of the bargain, but they wanted a coach like that here. I think this is a tragedy. It's hard to sort of sometimes really talk hockey in the midst of it because it's so much bigger than that. But I do think they have turned all of that sort of sadness, anger, resentment, all of the things you feel during the grieving process as best they can into an energy and playing for something larger than themselves. I think that's been a message that has been, again, first mentioned by Meredith Gaudreau in her eulogy, and I think they grabbed onto that and tried to live that. And I think Evason, as a coach, has helped them do that.
How's the atmosphere been when Mr. Gaudreau, the father, Guy, has been at the rink and on the ice participating with the players?
Yeah, you know what? That was a great thing to see yesterday. It just was yesterday and today. And if you knew anything about all of the Gaudreaus, as Dean Evason continues to say, they are rink rats. They are rink rats, and that comes. We can now say with great faith that comes from Guy Gaudreau, who they said, "Would you like to join us Wednesday for practice?" He might have been the first guy in the building. He might have been the first guy dressed to go on the ice. He went out with the goaltenders a half hour before anybody else. They said after practice, "You're welcome here anytime." And he said, "Are you taking a morning skate tomorrow?" Sure. So he was on the ice with them again today. They may have to tell him at some point, Guy, hey, Guy, take today off. But the Evason joke to that end today. He's into it. The players love it. Honestly, guys, I think for some of the guys who came to know Guy these last couple of years, because he's been a fixture around here while Johnny played, just to see him smile on the ice, to be, if only momentarily, released from the grief, is, I think, worth all of it for the players.
Besides everything you just described there and the emotions that are going on and how they're trying to harness that and turn it into a positive, Aaron, what have you liked about this team on the ice that maybe you weren't expecting from them, through camp? What have you seen? Or maybe there was something that was developing, a trend you saw in their game that was in a positive trend, so to speak. What has stood out to you so far in that respect?
Well, the one thing, no matter what the results are this season, no matter what it looks like in the standings, I think if you're a Blue Jackets fan, the one thing you want to come out of this season with is 3 or 4 of these young guys who have been sort of teasing the last couple of years. Now, I don't put Fantilli in that group, but he hasn't been teasing for the last 3 or 4 years. Last year was his rookie season, but that's a guy that can pop. Kent Johnson is a guy that can pop, and really, really has. He's been their best forward the first 2 games. Igor Chinikov is a guy who's played a lot of games here. Is he ready to take that step where he's a 20, 25 goal scorer? It's not crazy. He had 16 in 59 games last year. Marchenko, there's a wave of young players here. They've been here. They've had moments, but they haven't shown yet. This isn't a criticism. It's just, this is the rebuilding process. They haven't shown yet that step where they're really taking over the team. There are some veteran players here now. Don Waddell has brought in, but I think everybody realizes that when these young players push the veteran players out of their jobs and begin taking over this team from a talent perspective, that's when it's really going to start to go here. And I think you've seen that the first couple of games. Cole Sillinger and his line, all they had to do in Colorado was check the Nathan McKinnon line. And you would have never put together a Cole Sillinger, Kent Johnson, Michael Bouthia line and said, go check McKinnon. And they did a pretty good job with it in Denver. They lived to tell about it, where they don't have the second change. So there's really good signs up and down the lineup. Just the energy that they're playing with. Werenski looks reborn in this system. It allows defensemen to be, demands defensemen to be very aggressive. That is music to his ears. And I think there's a couple of other defensemen that fall into that category as well. Jake Christensen has found a spot, at least for now, in the top 4 on defense, which is, I did not have that at the start of training camp. I don't think anybody did.
I did.
Some really
I'm going to
signs.
tell you right now, Aaron, I did. I watched Jake Christensen play in the American Hockey League for 3 years. He was getting showed by the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I'll tell you one thing, he's their version of Jared Spurgeon. So when Dean Evason was over, I had him there, yes. So,
yeah, the system has come to him, I think you can say. It works perfectly.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this about Zach Werenski, he's Brock Faber. Brock Faber and Jimmy Knowles. I've been doing the Brock Faber pom-pom thing forever. And as soon as Dino went there, I said, this guy, Zach Werenski, is going to go to a whole other level. And so you're touching on all the right things, Aaron. What I want to ask you about, and this is important, obviously, because of what's gone on, unfortunately, with the organization. Boone Jenner's hurt. Probably won't play this year. He's your leader, by and large. Who's taken over the mantle of leadership?
So I think this is another element that's interesting. But just to first answer your question, I think Werenski's taken a step up. I think there are guys here now. Monahan has got a lot on his plate right now, but that's a real presence guy. A good Branson is that guy in the room. Sean Corrali is that guy in the room. James Van Riemsdyk joined the group this year. I think it's kind of tough for a first-year guy to just step right in and start, trying to be that guy. But I do think the room is better equipped for that sort of leadership loss than it has been in the past. I can tell you that Jenner's goal, don't know how realistic this is, but his goal is to be back for the outdoor game March 1st against Detroit here at Ohio Stadium. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it is. I feel like the guys in this room now, the older guys now feel like they have license to lead, where in the past there were a lot of guardrails and a lot of limitations put on that. And I don't think it did anybody any favors, the veteran players, the young players, any of them. It feels more like a National Hockey League room now. It looks more like an NHL team on the ice as well. But I think Jenner is still staying around and will still be that ever-present guy. But that is that and the loss of Voronkov. We were saying before the start of the season, what's changed in Columbus is the wingers. There's now some size on the wing. Like they can play a different way. They may not just cede every puck battle along the wall. You lose 6'5", 235-pound Voronkov and Jenner on basically at a 2-day span, and that size on the wing now needs to be quickness on the wing because they don't have that much girth over there anymore.
Interesting. Well, Aaron, we will let you go. I know you're a busy man. Keep up the great work, and rest in peace to Johnny and Matthew. And the Columbus Blue Jackets, I just want to say to them, what a great job they've done through this whole tragedy. And it should be an emotional night tonight, and I can see they're going to pay respect to them properly.
Yeah, well, great. Well, thanks, guys, for having me. I appreciate that. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Oh, we will, Aaron.
All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Aaron.
Aaron Portzline there. Pierre, I saw you light up a bit when he was talking about Christensen, and I knew you were going to say something.
I was saying now I'm going to, I love to be transparent with you and with our listeners. I watched him a ton when I was around our Belleville Senators a lot. And I was like, how's this guy not in the NHL?
He just wasn't getting a chance.
I couldn't get it. And, I know he got a little taste last year, but I was like, and I know the guys they had playing ahead of him, and I got nothing against all those guys that were playing ahead. They're all good players, but they didn't have the same offensive puck moving ability as this kid.
Yeah. And
I was like, whoa, don't tell me that nobody had him there. Because as soon as I saw Dino got that job, I was like, he's going to be he's going to be like Jared Spurgeon. Now, is he going to be as good? I don't think so. Spurgeon's been an amazing player for Minnesota.
But he can fit into that system is what you're saying.
The guy that I thought would benefit the most besides Christensen, I'm glad they're giving him a chance because I do think he's going to do well there, is going to be Werenski.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I see Brock Faber, and you know what? Hey, Jimmy, remember what we talked about?
Yep.
Brock Faber's going to boom.
Yep. And I'll tell you, too, it's interesting because I remember when I talked to Tom Fitzgerald early in the summer about Team USA and the 4 nations and the Olympics coming up. That's a guy he mentioned to me we're keeping an eye on. He's kind of had some down years, but, if he's playing to his potential and he can find his game again, he could slide into that USA lineup here. So
what I'd ask everybody to do, because he has been dealing with injuries and he's obviously not been on a marquee team. I think we're talking about Zach, right? Zach Werenski.
Yep.
I can tell you right now, there are very few defensemen in the league, and very few that can shoot the puck like him. And it's not just the velocity, it's the release, Jimmy. His release is elite. It's elite. And if he can pan out, if he can take another step forward, he's got a legitimate chance to play 4 nations. He does.
We'll have to look into that as we get closer. We'll keep an eye on him. Pierre, one more question regarding the Blue Jackets and specifically the Johnny Gaudreau, Matthew Gaudreau tribute that they're doing tonight.
Yep.
As a coach, how do you keep the team focused on the game? There's so much emotions going on right now. How do you balance letting those emotions flow, letting that release come out that, obviously needs to come out, but also staying within the moment and the game in front of you?
You just hit it perfectly. I went through this once. It was obviously the passing of Bob Johnson. And we did a celebration of life in the old Pittsburgh Arena, in the Civic Arena, the Igloo. Craig Patrick set it up. It was masterful. They put, and back then you could do it. The fire marshals didn't care. They put candles in everybody's seat. And people lit their candles with the building dark. And you could hear it when you were at ice level. I was coaching the defense. Scotty was coaching up front. And I want to say for New Jersey, I think it was Tommy McVie. I think Tommy was coaching. And what they both, you could hear people sniffling on the ice. But Craig Patrick did this ceremony, and they came up with Linda Ronstadt's song. If you haven't heard, it's called "Goodbye, My Friend."
Yes, great song.
I'm not a music guy, but I will always remember that.
Yeah.
Because you saw grown men on both benches and grown men on both blue lines crying, and it was before the game, and it was really emotional. But Scotty never addressed it, and he said, "You know what, Pierre? Just let these guys deal with what they have to deal with. We're not getting involved." And you know what? It was probably the best thing. Just treat them like men. Let them know that they're men and they're allowed to do this. They're allowed to be emotional. It's not a bad thing.
You're human. You're human. I mean, it is.
And I thought
you're not robots.
It was a well played game. We won the game. I know that. But what stood out to me was the way Craig Patrick he did the whole thing by himself. I'm telling you, Jimmy, this day of all these PR people and everybody's running around. They got videos here, lights there, music here. They got all this stuff. Craig said, "Nope, that's not how Bob would want it." And so he did it all by himself. And I know you can see it on YouTube.
I'll find it.
And when you watch it, I think we had like 16,900. I think that was a capacity Igloo, maybe a little bit bigger. Everybody had a candle in their hand. It was pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah.
And respectful. And I know we were really grateful to how, and we were a big division opponent of ours, the Devils at that time. It was really well done by both parties. Really well done.
Yeah. The most similar thing I could say that I was involved in was when I covered the first game back after the marathon bombings in Boston.
I was there. We did it. NBC did it. We did that game. That was tough. I interviewed Andrew Ferentz. It was a sit-down interview with Andrew because he was one of the more demonstrative Bruins at that time. I asked him, I said, "What does it mean to be Boston strong?" And he gave an answer, and I would not want to do it injustice because it was so strong.
I remember it very well.
So good that I know NBC led with that. Very seldom would they lead with a player interview, but they led with that because he was so good. And that was you talk about emotional thing. Jimmy, I'm getting long-winded on this one, but I'm going to tell you something that never got out. I got a call from a very good friend of mine, Scott Fusco, the Hobie Baker winner, who's been on our show before. And he said, "Pierre, a real good friend of our daughters, and he has 3 daughters, is kind of missing. And they just found her from the bombing, and she's in a hospital. And her favorite player for the Bruins is Tyler Seguin. Is there any way you can get in touch with him and have him send a note or make a call?" So I texted Tyler right away, and he called me. He said, "What's up?" He thought I was calling for a hockey story. I said, the bombing happened, and there's this young lady in the hospital, and this is her name, and she'd love to talk to you. He says, "Give me your number. I'll send her a text, and I'll call her." And he did. And nobody knew except for the young lady and Tyler.
Yep.
that just shows you how hockey guys are.
They really are.
We never told anybody, but
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. You know, it's like Brock Besser. I told you the story in Vancouver. There was a young man with cancer down at the Ronald McDonald House in Vancouver, and the mother called me from Penticton, BC, and said, "Is there any way you can do this? My son's really going through a battle."
Yeah.
And I called Brock, and Brock, boom, right away went to the Ronald McDonald House, brought a Brock Besser game jersey, gave it to the mom. And these players don't say a word about this. They just care about being good people.
It's true. It's true. There's so many of those stories that I've sat on. I've maybe told you or told my family or a friend, but never wrote about or reported because they don't want that. They just want to do it. They just want to do it, But I'll tell you, Pierre, great. I don't know. We don't script this, but the reason I referenced that, I was going to talk about Tyler Seguin because, as you remember, they may have lost that game against Buffalo, that first game back, but they went on a run, and that whole Boston Strong thing took on a life of its own, and the Bruins, and then of course the Red Sox winning the World Series that year, going from last to first in one season. But I'll never forget, I'd say it was probably about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I mean, everybody had cleared out. We had done our interviews in the locker room after the Bruins lost to the Blackhawks in Game 6 in the Stanley Cup Final. And I came down the hallway by the dressing room, and Sagan's just out there, and he's bawling. He's crying. Just crying. And I said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. I don't give a shit that we lost. Excuse my French." He goes, "We let the city down. This was for them." That's has stuck with me forever. And any opinion I had of him before that, or I know there's, he's taken some flack for some stuff, that to me, he can do no wrong in my eyes. After that moment, he's like, "I don't care about the game, the cup. I want to win this for Boston." I'll never forget that.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. That's good. But that's the kind of guy I know him to be. That's how
and I'm sure that's the feelings that are going on in Columbus right now. So you hope they can go out there and get that win for Johnny and Matthew. So we'll see. All right, let's get over to our Q&A. But before we do, we're going to go to Betway. And I'm on a losing streak now with my picks, Pierre. Took the Canadians last night. Oh, well. But I'll tell you what, I got a good one tonight. Before I tell you my Betway pick of the night, Betway, is the leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway, and you can go right there, that QR code. If you're watching right now here on YouTube, you just go right there with your phone. It'll take you right there, or go to Betway.com and sign up. And remember, you must be 18 plus and bet responsibly. And you know what? I'm going with the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. Money line. They pulled the upset over the Florida Panthers. Florida, I think, came in. They're still shorthanded. They come in after an emotional win over the Bruins. The Blue Jackets are obviously going to have a lot of emotions going on too. I think they channel that and they get a win. And I like the way the Blue Jackets are playing right now. I mean, I meant that when I brought up to Aaron. They're buying in. They're buying in right now to Dean.
They are. Hey, look, they are. Good for them. I'm happy for them. Great for those fans. Don't forget our good folks over in Ireland.
Oh, yes. I'm going to get to that. So I am going to a breakfast here in the New England area in Quincy, Mass, where Cara travels, Sarah Stanton's business that is taking us over to Ireland, where they're based. They're having a leadership breakfast. The Chamber of Commerce in Quincy, Mass. Quincy is a city just out of Boston. For people who don't know, it's right next to Boston. A lot of Irish people. And Marty Walsh will be speaking there, Pierre. And, of course, he's going to be over there.
Former mayor of Boston.
Okay. So I'm looking forward to talking to him, as I just spoke to Bill Daly. Had a story up there, rg.org today. Looking forward to talking to Marty about the Friendship 4. He's going to be part of that. I'm very excited about that. And, of course, a shout-out to the Belfast Giants and everyone over there. And, before we know it, Pierre, we're going to start getting these guests on to line us up and start to really get into the mode for the Friendship 4.
You make sure that our seat at the Harp Bar is warmed up and ready.
Oh, it's going to be ready, my friend.
We're doing our shows from there. And
it's going to be
ready.
ready.
Everybody that's going to be coming over, come join Jimmy and I at the Harp Bar.
And to all our listeners and viewers in Belfast, because I know we do have some, Pierre. I see the charts of where people are listening, and we have some listeners there. Yep. So to all the people in Belfast, can't wait to meet you. Pierre and I are really looking forward to coming over to the Friendship 4. But let's get to that Q&A right now. What do we got? Alex Evanowski, how many games in do you start to get a feeling for your team? 10 to 15? Pierre? What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, I'd say that.
I think that's right on the money.
That's probably close enough, maybe 15 to 20, but I'd say more guys than not, they know what their team is 10 to 15 games in the season.
All right, next question. Roger Collette. What's up, Roger? Hello, Pierre and Jimmy. Where does it say that you can't have two defensemen like Hudson and Matheson on the same power play? Great show. Thanks a lot, Roger. It doesn't say it anywhere, but I think maybe you want to spread the wealth, I guess, is the way I look at it.
You could have two like that. I personally would rather go 4 forwards on the first power play and 1D, and then maybe on the second power play 2D, and 3 forwards. But everybody's different. Every power play is different. But I've had some that have gone with 4 forwards and 1D, and I've had some that have gone with 2D and 3 forwards. Some work well, some don't.
Yep. All right. Next question. Alex Devanowski again. Do you think Jerry would benefit from being traded to a team that plays with more structure in front of him? Even in their glory years, the Penguins just play such a high-tempo chance-for-chance game.
My biggest concern with Tristan Jarry is the bad goal per game.
Mm-hmm.
Top goalies in the league don't do that almost every game, and he does. And I like him a lot. I've known him again a long time. He was a tremendous player in the Western Hockey League. Unbelievable goal. He really was. But he's got to find a way. It's mental, I think, more than anything else. It's not a physical thing. It's a mental thing. Look at last night on a couple of those goals. It's almost like he was sideways.
Right.
Man, I don't get that. Like, he's not being taught how to play goal like that. People aren't teaching him that.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know about it. That's a great point, Alex. Maybe more structure would help, but I would say I'll say this right now. Based on everything I heard around the deadline last year and then heading into the draft, I was stunned when they signed him to the extension and when they did instead of trading him. I really was. And even when they signed him, I wondered, okay, they're just trying to make him more attractive on the trade market because he's locked up. So I was surprised that he came back. I just felt for both sides a change of scenery might have helped, but he is where he is, and they're going to have to figure it out. So we'll see what happens going
forward.
forward.
Who needs a goalie? Colorado.
Oh, yes.
Oh, boy.
Pierre, I want to get to them too. I don't know if we have time today, but I want to talk about them tomorrow. Maybe we'll get a Colorado guest on sometime this week.
We should. I'm going there on Friday.
I'm not making
Denver on Friday, so
okay. Well, we should see if we can get a U Denver guest on Friday, my friend, for On Campus Friday. Maybe we'll look into that.
Leave that to you.
I will work on it. But I want to talk about the Avalanche at some point this week because I agree with you. They need a goalie, and I'm not making excuses. But, man, do they miss Taves on that blue line right now.
Well, they miss Taves. They miss Drouin. They miss Lehkonen. They miss Nichushkin. They miss Landeskog. Like, they're missing a lot of guys.
They are.
I'm not making excuses either because you got to still make saves.
You do.
Like,
you got to still make saves.
Look at Florida. You just talked about it. Florida didn't have Barkov. They didn't have Kachuk yesterday. And they're a bunch of new guys. Montreal's gone. Lombard's gone. They got a lot of guys in different cities now. And they're the defending Stanley Cup champs. They've been on the road outside of their first game on home ice where they beat Boston. And they come into Boston, and Boston thinks they got him. They score the first goal, and they think they got him. And then you look at the third period, Boston had nothing. Florida had everything.
And they're cooking dinner in Boston's kitchen right now. I'll tell
you
that.
Are, but part of it's because of Bobrovsky. We started this discussion because of goaltending. Bobrovsky says, screw you guys. I'm not letting you score. Buzz off.
That was an impressive win for an early season where I think anyone could have said, all right, it's a Saturday afternoon. You beat them the first game. They're getting a little payback, especially what happened last. Like, it was almost like, we'll move on. That's it. No, they were like, screw that. Like you said, we're going in and we're winning this game. This is a big game, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna rally together, and they did. So gutsy win by the Panthers. Next question. Matthew Kazar. As of today, who are your top 3 goalies for Team Canada at the Four Nation Face-Off? Ooh, that's a tough question. I don't know. Is that an answer? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
I would say this: you got to look around the league.
Pierre, if I go into the season, what would you say?
The other night, James Reimer is Canadian. Should he be on Team Canada? Stuart Skinner plays for Edmonton. He's Canadian. Should he be on Team Canada? Sam Montembeault played last night for Montreal, and he didn't look very good. Should he play for Canada? Most of the goalies that I see around the league are either American or Russian, and maybe a couple of Finns and Swedes. Should Tristan Jarry be playing for Team Canada? He played last night. He got the win over Montembeault. Maybe he wants to play. I think they can try to spin it, and I get it. And I've got nothing against the management people for Hockey Canada. I worked for those guys for a long time. They can try to spin it all they want. If they're not concerned about their goaltending, they're not telling the truth.
No, but they're waiting for somebody to seize the moment. Like it's there. There's never been a window of opportunity like this for Canadian goaltending, Pierre. If you think back over the years, for just anybody to jump in and be like, "This is my job."
I'd call Roder or Luongo and say, "You guys get in shape."
Yeah, you want to come out of retirement?
Or I don't think Fleury's got it in him anymore. But if it would have been 3 years prior, Marc-Andre Fleury could do it. But you look around, it's just weird how this whole thing, because Canada used to be an embarrassment of riches. I remember when Marty Brodeur was a third-string goalie for the Olympic team.
It was amazing.
I remember when he got pulled in 2010, and Luongo went in and won the gold medal, and Brodeur was sitting on the bench right next to me.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you. I remember when Curtis Joseph in 2002 in Salt Lake City got pulled and Brodeur went in. Curtis Joseph was on top of the Brodeur. But I'm just saying, like, they were stocked.
Yeah,
Patrick Roy, look at Nagano. Canada was just absolutely stocked with goalies.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I don't know what happened, but that's a topic for another day. Let's go to the next question. Randy Workman, if you're the Oilers GM, how many games do you wait to step in and make changes? After what they went through early last year and the way they turned it around, obviously they made a pretty big change, made one behind the bench. I don't think we're going to see anything till Thanksgiving at least, American Thanksgiving at least. But I think one thing I would keep an eye on is the blue line. If there's a change, I think it's coming there. I really do.
I agree with what Jimmy just said. The one thing I'll say is, and I know I said it yesterday, Jimmy, I was pretty passionate about it. Unless their star players want to play team defense, I don't care how good they are, they're not winning.
And they proved that. They played it in the playoffs, and they won.
Playoffs, but until they want to commit as a group to playing team defense, they're not winning.
Yeah.
These guys would be having nightmares if Scotty was coaching them. They'd be having nightmares.
I saw it too, Pierre.
Not be fun. I can tell you that.
You remember who we both agreed they miss a lot that nobody's talking about?
Who, Vander?
Yes. Of course, I see a column somewhere today on that. Hey, at least they're watching. All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. Pierre, is Landon DuPont for Everett the player you couldn't mention when we talked about McKenna from MH? Grant McKaig said he could beat some of Mario's junior records, and he plays D. I don't know anything about this, Pierre. I'll let you take this.
Okay, first of all, I'm not saying anything about Mario's records. Mario's records are Mario's records. Everybody's entitled to an opinion, and I always respect everybody's opinion.
Yep.
To me, I'm spoiled because I had a really good seat to watch Mario and me do some unbelievable stuff, and I'm really blessed to call him a friend, and I'm really grateful for his friendship. So it's hard for me to say anything that would even, for any player to even rival him. And I'm just going to tell you, I know the player you're speaking of. I would just say this. I think McKenna is going to be Celebrini-esque.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say it any better, Jimmy, in terms of praise. I remember calling you that day. I'm like, Jimmy, this guy's so good.
Oh, yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah. It's going to be it's so bad Celebrini got hurt so early, but he'll be back. Next question. Matthew Kazar. Gentlemen, what is a realistic ceiling for Kapanen and Heineman?
15 to 20 goals. If they could do that, that'd be huge.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to put anything above that. 15 would be great for both.
Yep. And I like your game so
far. They're not going to get a lot of sugar time. They're not going to get a lot of power play time.
Yeah. So
they'll get some, not a lot, especially with Caulfield and Suzuki. So that top group is good for Montreal. They're good. But I'd say both because of their speed and their hockey sense and Heineman, that goal last night, Jimmy, coming down the wing, that's launched.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I don't know what people said. I wasn't listening with the sound up because I had so much going on. But I can just tell you, like, that thing was launched.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Next question. John Smith, gentlemen, what do you think the play is on the Barre Boulet move? They did waive him and he cleared. Did they just wait a bit for other teams to trim their rosters, or is this a guy they're not concerned about losing?
I don't think they were concerned about it. I was surprised when he made the team come out of camp, but I think it was a nice way for the organization to acknowledge how well he had played in camp.
Yep.
I think it sent a really appropriate message to all the players that were
hard work is rewarded.
You work hard, you come in, you play hard, you're going to get an opportunity. What you do with your opportunity, that's up to you. And how long it lasts, that's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. All right, next question. Stephen Gradanis, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Question, if Struble comes back for the Habs on Thursday, what would be your defensive pairings and who sits out?
I would say that you'd have to think about Barron coming out.
I was going to say same.
You'd have to think about him. The only problem you have, who can play on the right side. Struvel's definitely better on the left side. I think Arbor's probably better on the left side. I think Mike Matheson's probably better on the left side. You know, Gooley can play both. Hudson, he can play both, but defensively, again, you saw it last night, Jimmy. As advertised, we said, if you're counting on him to be a stopper on defense, you're not counting on the right thing.
No.
He's going to influence the outcome of the game with his offense and his puck movement. That's how you can influence it in a negative way with his defense. I don't think people you got to pay attention. I mean, he's just not big enough right now. But offensively, there's a gift there that's unbelievable.
Of course, yeah. Agreed. All right, next question. Matthew Kazar, Pierre, when you see two players fight in practice like Dahlin and Krebs, oh yeah, that was interesting. Is this good because it shows competitiveness, or is it a sign of a bad locker room?
So you'd have to be around the dressing room. I would just tell you this. So I remember we were playing in the Stanley Cup final. We had Shel Sanderson and Jay Caulfield, and we were practicing on the south side of Pittsburgh. I don't even know if that arena is still there. And Jay and Shel got into a stick swinging fight. And one of the coaches said to me, I was around practice, "You're going to break it up? You go." They're swinging sticks like baseball bats. I'm not going in there. And I would caution you not to go in there. And eventually it got broken up. They didn't hate each other at all. They admired each other, but I think they were just so competitive that they were pushing. I didn't like that one in Buffalo yesterday. Darlene's captain of the team, and he low-bridged. Like on Krebs, he low-bridged them. And to his credit, though, and I bet Lindy had something to do with this, Darlene went and apologized.
I saw it. He circled back. Yeah.
Yeah. So I respect that, but I would say there's got to be some tension there. There's got to be some tension.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very situational, and I'm going to lean with Pierre on the tension in this situation. Yeah. All right. Next question. John Smith, aloha. Some good teams are off to cold starts. How late is too late to make changes? Did the analytics guys get involved in figuring out what a team's playoff probabilities are? I know it's early. I'm just asking.
No, but that's fair. That's a good question.
These are all fair questions, yeah.
We didn't, John, I'll tell you this. We didn't have analytics when I coached, but we knew the numbers. We didn't need an analytic formula to say, okay, we've just played 20 games. That's 40 points in the standings, and we only have 9. We're below 500. That's no good. You know what I mean? So we got to get better in a hurry. And there were other times where out of 40 points, we, had a lot. Let's say we had 30. We were in the right position. So I think there was a question earlier, 10 to 15 games. I'd say 15 to 20 is probably appropriate for the numbers, judging the numbers.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question. Matthew Kazar, Pierre, I just finished Burke's Law. Do you have any hockey book recommendations?
I do.
Game, obviously.
I hope I get the titles right. One of the ones I really enjoyed was the late John Ferguson's book. John Ferguson Sr. I think it was called Thunder and Lightning. It was a good read because I knew John so well. And what people didn't know about John was he was a tremendous lacrosse player. He wasn't just a great hockey player. He was an awesome lacrosse player. It shows a lot how times were back then. Speaks a lot about his relationship with Jean Beliveau. So I thought that was really good. And there's one by Gordie Howe's son that I still have. He's a doctor in Toledo, Ohio. He played hockey at the University of Michigan. Wow. And it's called The 9 Life Lessons I Learned from My Father. And that is the exact title. And I read that book, and I read it again, and I read it again. It's really good. And if you have a young person that wants to be in hockey, they should read that book. But it's the 9 Life Lessons I Learned from My Father. It's really good.
I like that. I also am a big fan of They Call Me Gump.
The Gump stuff. See, Jimmy, I'm dating myself, but I remember going with all those old Montreal Canadian guys to all these different golf events. And, you know,
you met him, eh?
The Molson family would put a lot of sponsorship in there, and we'd sit around afterwards. And I was just, you know, a young guy. I just finished coaching. I was just starting in the media. So we're, you know, 1997, 98 right in there. And the boys would, I'd just sit in the back and I would shut my mouth until they asked me a question. I'm not saying boo. And I'd listen to the guys, and the stories were unbelievable. They were amazing.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just sit there and, you know, you suck on a Molson export and you just listen to what they're saying. It was so good. It was so good.
Yeah. I got a friend of mine wrote an autobiography, or a screenplay actually, based on the autobiography on that book, They Call Me Gump. And we got to interview him a couple times, and it was just, we sat in the lobby of the Sheraton in Montreal and René Lévesque there, you know where it is. And we just, you just listen. And he was something. I remember, I'll never forget, Pierre. I'm getting up to leave, and, you know, I shake his hand. He goes, "You're a funny man." You know how he talked, just subtle like that, and he just turned around and walked away.
And I got one on Johnny Bower. I got a good Johnny Bower story.
All right, go.
So
I think we're done anyways with the questions. So
my brother and I went to this camp in the early 70s called the Halliburton Hockey Haven, and it was a great camp, and I loved it. Jimmy, I loved every minute I was there. I thought it was great. There were good players, like young, good players. The coaches were all NHL guys that were players, so you kind of, wow, you know, that's Denny Potvin. Wow, that Jean Potvin. Like all these, you know, good players. There's Joey Johnston from the California Golden Seals. Like, you know, Brian Watson was there. Like, I remember them all. It was great.
Yep.
So my brother Regan did not enjoy it as much as I did. So it's a pretty cool story. So we were getting invited to go to the movies that night. We didn't have a lot of money on us. I don't know. I don't think we could afford to go to the movie theater, my brother and I, at that time. And Johnny Bower came to our dorm, like the cabin where we were. "What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, you know, we're going to kind of hang out. We'll read a book or something." He goes, No, you got to come to the movies. And my brother Regan said, "We don't have enough money to go to the movies." He goes, "Nonsense. I'll take you to the movies." Johnny Bower. So this is the part of the story you'll like. He brought us to the movies and bought us, I didn't know it was called pop at the time, but that part of Ontario, they called soda pop. So I said,
"Yep.
You want a pop?" I said, "Sure." I didn't know what to say. And he paid for that too. So one of the first games I ever coached was in old Maple Leaf Gardens.
Right.
And Johnny Bower was there.
Wow.
So I walked up to him and I said, "Mr. Bower, my name's Pierre McGuire. I'm working with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I just wanted you to know this story." And I just told him the exact thing I just told you.
Yep.
He says, "I used to do that every summer. I didn't know whether the kids were telling the truth or not." They had money. But he says, "It made me feel good." He was such a nice man.
That's
he was
awesome.
such a nice man. So, you know, obviously I moved to Toronto to start on TSN, and I used to see him a lot at the Garden.
Wow.
I used to see him a lot at Maple Leaf Gardens and talk to him a lot. It was great. Really
it's
great.
funny how it comes full circle, huh? You end up being there.
Then, I used to see him before he passed. I used to see him when he was at, I don't even know if it was called, was it Scotiabank then? I don't even remember at the start. And he was there, and he was just such a gentleman. Johnny Bower's an awesome guy.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, hey, to all our hockey heroes out there, we appreciate it. And of course, to everyone in Columbus, we're thinking of you there. We're thinking of Gaudreau's tonight. And thank you to Aaron Portzline for joining us. And thanks to our man Shane working the boards in Montreal. And thanks to you, the viewers and the listeners. We love your questions. Keep them coming. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.